Tyler Bryden here. Hope everything is going well. Recording this Tuesday, March 25th. It's going to be a Canadian heavy episode. We've got the election coming up. Thank you, Vancouver Sun. And if we were to summarize it here, advanced voting scheduled for April 18th to 21st. Voting by mail, you need to register by the 22nd. And then the final day to vote is April 28th. So things are heating up. Definitely starting to feel the temperature in Canada increase. Obviously, we've got this 51st state Trump tariff threat that's going on that's already fired Canadians up. And then you now throw in this federal election in a very important time for Canada. And whether it's my feed specifically, I'm guessing it's not. The timeline's starting to heat up and get a little bit more spicy, a little more conflict. And we're going to look at some of that here today. So what's on the docket? A little bit of Polymarket, some of this polling coming through, some stories as we look through Pierre, Carney. No one else really matters in this race, to be honest. We've got some endorsements. We've got some anti-endorsements. We've got hit pieces emerging. We've got debates being scheduled or not scheduled. We've got some idea of borrowing. Some would say stealing. We've got rallies, and the campaign is on. So let's jump into that and more. Now, I've documented a little bit of my bias, at least for this campaign. Former Liberal voter, progressive person, but don't see how we could reward Liberals with more power after the last 10 years and don't have a lot of faith in Carney. His history, his experience, his possible conflicts of interest, and just his overall temperament, way that he communicates, and this elitist mindset and view that seems to be more and more apparent every single time a reporter asks a question. Now, there's been quite a trend line growing here as Mark Carney became the final pick and really overtook, hitting at peak 61% probability of becoming the next Prime Minister of Canada. There was a temporary adjustment where you could see Pierre take the lead, and then after some news, and it's coming so fast, we've now seen Carney back to 55% chance of becoming the next Prime Minister of Canada after the election. Does everyone believe this? Yes? No? Polling all over the place. And there's a huge breakdown between the generation and who they're voting for. But at a core level, I have more faith in Polymarket than I do some of the pollings with very small sample size. And I don't know if that's right or not, but that's the way I'm looking at it. And they've predicted a lot of things correctly. And while there's still some movement, a little bit earlier today, there's now only a 37% chance Liberals win with a majority in Canada. And questions around, hey, are we getting sick of Trudeau 2.0, as in Carney? And I couldn't help myself. I got the whole Carney sucks section here today where we start to see why Canadians may feel that way. At the same time, I think we are seeing some underpinnings or signs that there is motivation and excitement around Pierre's campaign. It is reminiscent for me of the Kamala and Trump campaign where Carney is Kamala being installed by the powers that are already in, whereas Pierre is more like Trump. Some people would like that comparison, some people wouldn't, but more of a grassroots effort from the Canadian population who are picking him to lead. He's done some really interesting releases now where there was some criticism and skepticism of, does he even really have a plan? Some of these have been very nicely played with Carney, his campaign saying, hey, we're going to cut this much. Pierre coming in more aggressive after that so that Carney can't go back. So the 40 chess, all of that's beginning to be played. And here we go again, seeing the lines for a Pierre rally pretty significant. Some of these in Toronto, some of these in North York, GTA region, with a lot bigger turnout than I think even they expected. We've also got endorsements from people like Stephen Harper, whether you like it or not. I know some of my family who did not really value him in power, starting to reminisce a little bit more fondly on Harper, and even someone like my mom who was an accountant always appreciated his more economic perspective and focus on the fiscal stability of Canada versus the balanceable budget itself, Trudeau regiment that we had. Got some more shots here. This was, I believe, North York. Common sense, lots of excitement. And even when you do a comparison of them, say communicating side by side, the excitement, the passion, the energy that comes from Pierre versus Carney, the contrast is pretty stark. We also had a big moment here. Now, maybe Rogan's having a little bit of fun watching a fight match here. but still a person with a very large population endorsing Pierre for prime minister. Let's take a quick.
Canada, get your shit together. Come back. Come back to what you used to be. That Pierre Poilievre guy, however you say his name, that guy makes sense.
So that's Rogan with the endorsement. Now we've got Trump here with possibly the endorsement of Pierre, maybe the anti-endorsement of Carney. Let's take another
a conservative until I got involved, because I don't care who wins up there. I frankly probably would do better with the Liberal than the Conservative, if you want to know the truth. But just a little while ago, before I got involved and totally changed the election, which I don't care about, probably it's to our advantage.
Saying that he thinks that maybe Carney should be easier to boss around and be able to get more from the Liberals than the Conservatives. It is an interesting question if that's the true takeaway from this, considering Trump's true intentions. If he really wants to take over Canada, then yes, maybe the Liberal leadership is ideal for him. Whereas if you think that's more just something that he's thinking about, that a Conservative Party more aligned with his worldview and agenda would be more beneficial to building a better relationship between the two countries and restoring that unity that has lasted for so many decades. And another interesting moment that came out of this week is that Trump doesn't really want to deal with Carney or respect him as prime minister until this election is done.
To put us in a strong position. See, this is a fundamental mistake that the Americans are making. They think they will weaken us. They think that they can own us, quite frankly. That's what they think. We are going to get stronger. We are going to wait this out. They're going to come to the table, and we're going to negotiate a good deal for the Canadians. Thank you, Steve.
Sir, did you say that President Trump is waiting to talk to the Prime Minister of whoever wins this election?
That's an interpretation, but I think it's a reasonable interpretation. I'm available for a call, but we're going to talk on our terms as a sovereign country, not as what he pretends we are, and on a comprehensive deal.
Low energy Carney here. And I think that tells a pretty clear story of how Trump feels, the American administration feels, and a lot of Canadians feel too, is that at least right now, Carney is not a full representative of Canadians, with only a small percentage of people who have voted him into power. And to make this more legitimate for Carney, he's announced that he's now seeking a seat in Nepean, in Ottawa, where Chandra, who was eliminated from the Liberal race, is now disqualified. Carney thinking that this is the easiest seat to get for the upcoming election. And when asked why choose to run there, what led to him being disqualified, his best man's from Nepean. It's diverse and represents Canada. A major decision there. And so here's Barbara Ball, who is running as a Conservative in this region and has really blown up her campaign with a lot more enthusiasm, people hoping to turn this around on Carney and get her into power. Now, do I have any clue if that's a feasible thing? No, I do not. I'm not that deep into this, but you can see the explosion of followers. March 23rd, 12 hours ago, 1,400 followers. She's now at 12,600. I've given her following, and we're now at almost 60,000. So good luck to Barbara, and a great way to make this race interesting with another attempt at installing Carney into the Canadian power system using questionable tactics that most people would not always feel is completely democratic. And to no surprise, the hit pieces are starting to come out, The Wonderful Life of Politics. We had some messaging today around Pierre and India during his run, and one of the reasons why he didn't receive that information is the security clearance approval. And already some pushback on this story here, where this apparently broke months ago and already talked about interference across all parties, including the Chinese, which then flips back. Pierre going at Carney. He's compromised by Beijing. Weeks after becoming the economic advisor, secures a $250 million loan from the People's Bank of China. These questions of his conflicts of interest, and really, are there some more globalist owners of Carney already based on his past business dealings? We've also seen attacks from removing pharmacare, healthcare, the childcare and dental care, which I think Pierre did a great job addressing these objections head on. Whether you believe him or not, I think him hearing feedback, hearing objections to him becoming prime minister and addressing those head on for people to see his response is a great way to attack this campaign in a short period of time, just over 30 days left in this campaign. Now, the other story that emerged is Carney refuses this French language debate after he had said that he would do it. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one because apparently there is a French debate that's already happening, and now Carney has opted back into this. Got my dog rolling on the ground here. And Pierre went as far as offering to pay for Carney's debate fee so that he could get him on the stage, which good level trolling from Pierre here. And I miss seeing them in Parliament where you could really see them spar and some of Pierre's talent for debate shine. And then we had Blanchette. I know a lot of people don't like this guy, but roasting Carney here as well, when obviously French being a big part of the Canadian identity, whether people like that or not, it's always been understood that you need to be a good French speaker as prime minister, and any willingness to not engage with that part of the country could be detrimental to the campaign. And this begins my Carney sucks portion of this episode, which, again, the more I see of him, the more I feel this way. And I've already talked about how I'm trying to eliminate those biases, but I can't help myself when I see the way he communicates, the way he addresses people, and then some of these interests that are undisclosed but are seemingly start to leak out in some ways.
During the Liberal leadership race, you said that your middle-class tax cut would offset the loss of carbon rebates. The cut you offered is up to $825. The rebates were as high as $1,800 for a family in Alberta. I'm just wondering how you square that math.
We do square the math. We have squared the math. A couple of things. One is you look at where the rebate is today. You net the, I'm going to look at the camera because you move behind it, but I can't look you in the eye. But you square it with the carbon price, carbon tax that people are no longer paying, because the rebate is obviously a gross amount. You have to net off the carbon tax that's being paid. So you have our tax cut today versus that rebate and the net of the carbon tax that has gone away. Plus, we have added the rebate, an extra quarter of the rebate that goes directly to people without the carbon tax. So for a median income, a family of 50 earning $50,000, they come out ahead.
Does that make sense to you? I don't know, man. He's got that word salad Kamala syndrome going on here and does not deal well with media asking him any difficult questions. We've got some battles going on with the fishermen, and apparently police told the fishermen to move outside after Carney said that he wants to acknowledge them and is here to listen. We had Carney preaching net zero, pushing the Canadian government to do this, saying there was no business case for LNG, at the same time expanding pipelines into the States with proceeds over $1 billion. This is just a meme for fun. I don't truly understand this elbows up stuff. And we've got Get on Your Knees, World Economic Forum. We've got Pierre highlighting Carney's record as an economic advisor with Trudeau. And you can see that did not go so well, with some interesting insights into population growth and Carney's own cabinet picks, their agenda behind population growth that we'll discuss in a second.
All right.
Some stories about the workers said they did not want to be here, did not want to shake Carney's hand. So when we get to working class people in Canada, it's a little bit different of a perspective of Mark Carney. And I think this is where we might see that Kamala effect in the polls, or that Trump effect in the polls, where these kind of people are underrepresented, hard to reach, and are pretty fired up, likely going out to vote in the election.
I'm a European. Oh, you are? Oh,
European.
Oh, you are?
Yeah,
Oh.
Irish citizen.
I'm a European. Oh, you are?
Yeah,
Oh.
Irish citizen.
We've got Carney, the European. He's an Irish citizen. Is he Canadian? Is he American? We don't know. We've got him discussing world hunger and Canada's carbon tax hike from $55 to $170 a ton in 5 years. He's lost this because of lawsuits. All these links will be in the video. We've got associations with Epstein. Got him getting visibly annoyed by having to answer questions.
You, the last local person. Can we? Okay. I feel that. Yeah.
2 minutes, please.
Yeah.
2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Carney.
Yeah. I'm gonna let.
Very quick, Mr.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Emerson.
I'm Jacob Moore with Acadia Broadcasting.
There you go, a little anger, a little temper there. We've got people falling asleep on his campaign. It's okay, you can do it. Just take a little nap. We've got weird exploitation of 9/11. We've got a lack of understanding of his own cabinet. And even being this liberal progressive person, installing all men into his senior roles. And we have him blaming Harper for Canada's military, even though Trudeau has been in power for 10 years. So about this population growth piece here that we're talking about, we've got Mark Wiseman, who pushed this rampant immigration and caused this affordability and housing crisis here in Canada. He was the one who lobbied Trudeau to bring in 500,000 immigrants per year. And his pro-immigration lobby advocates that we should raise Canada's population to 100 million by 2100, around about 40 million now. Most people would say we're not really in a good place right now. We don't have the housing, and we don't have the resources required to handle even our current population. How do we get to 100 million in our current situation? And Pierre's going at this, which is great to see. This is an issue for a lot of people. And as he started to address this, I think we've seen that's been one of the contributing factors to his rise on Polymarket. And it's a scary issue because this is where the Trump comparisons start, but it is one of the top of mind issues in Canada. And what's interesting is we've also got Carney plagiarizing Pierre's platform, taking his ideas. We've got no GST on new homes. We've got tax cuts. And we've even got reporters asking Carney now, why don't you just run as a conservative?
Bureau du journal pour le Parti conservateur.
And there's Carney's response to that. And now we've got Pierre addressing that himself.
Announcement. It will be, about 3 or 4 days, he'll be ripping off the announcement that I made today as he pretends to support the things that I stand for 30 days before an election.
And so where are we at right now? It's a huge discrepancy between these demographics, as I mentioned before. If we look at the breakdown by age group, with really 18 to 50 supporting conservatives, and then anywhere beyond that, liberals beginning to dominate. And it's obviously a very different life and economic picture people are living at this age, especially if they've done things well and have been benefiting from the system. And as they go into retirement, of course, they want things free, while we, as a younger generation, hopefully a future ahead of us, and we're going to have to deal with the consequences of it. As I've recorded this video, still bouncing back around with some slight ground up made from Pierre. It's a very dynamic environment. And we're starting to see the signs come out. We got Mark Carney and the red. We got the flag for Pierre. I myself put in a sign order for Pierre. I'm nervous about this. I don't know if I'm going to be able to put this up here or not, but I at least put it in. I made a donation. And I've talked about why I feel this way. I'm still open to information. I'm open to evidence. I'm open to change. I'm open to discussions. But at a core, I don't believe the Liberals should be rewarded for the last 10 years. And the more and more I see Pierre's passionate, energetic campaign with support of the people versus Carney's dry, boring word salads, the more and more that belief is being reinforced. And the truth is, we don't really have that much time to make this decision. And so I think people are becoming more and more passionate about their beliefs. We all see this as a critical time for Canada, and we're all hoping for the outcomes that we think are going to take Canada in the best directions. We've already seen a little bit of that with controversy here. Daniel Smith, who's being accused of asking Trump and the U.S. to interfere in Canadian elections by saying that conservatives are more aligned and to hold off on tariffs until the election is done. I believe she is doing what she thinks is right for Canada and what is right for Alberta. And we're only going to see more and more of that as we get closer. More endorsements, more anti-endorsements, more hit pieces, more rallies, more debates. All of this stuff is culminating to a very intense time in 30 days for Canadians. I will say at the end of this, no matter what happens, you have to support the outcome. And if the majority of Canadians voted for that, then that's the country that you live in, the majority of how Canadians felt, and accept that and move on. And I know that's a very difficult thing for people to do in a chaotic time with a lot of tribalism, anger, sadness, and strife across the world, especially here in Canada. I will say, as I've published some of this content, I've started to get a lot more comments and saying they love seeing conservatives cry or liberals deserve suffering. I don't believe that any of that is true. I really just hope to have a better life for Canadians, a better life for ourselves, a better life for our kids. And so in my end, if Carney ends up in power, I'm going to give him a chance, even with all these red flags that I see, and hope that he does the best for Canadians. We'll hold him to account if he doesn't. And I expect the same from Liberals if Pierre comes into power. So with that in mind, I'll close this out. I hope you enjoyed and got some insights out of this, and I look forward to reconnecting soon. Thank you so much.